The Gala hall shimmered under alien bioluminescent lights, the colors shifting with a mesmerizing rhythm that made the crystalline walls appear alive. The scent of exotic gases and metallic ozone filled the air, sharp to human senses, yet intoxicating to the galaxy's most dominant species. Every species present had traveled light years to witness the spectacle, the auctioning of a human. They spoke in clicks, hums, and vibrations that reverberated through the massive hall, an unintelligible chorus of expectation and confidence. At the center, the auction platform stood elevated, a cold slab of black metal with shimmering energy barriers marking its edges. Ambassador Lena Markov, representing Earth, stepped onto it. Her green eyes scanned the crowd with steady precision. Each heartbeat carried the weight of a species that had survived predators, natural disasters, and interstellar indifference. Around her, the Deathworld delegates murmured among themselves, their bodies engineered for war, their postures radiating superiority. To them, this human was just another curiosity, a fragile specimen with no hope of competing against centuries of evolution honed for dominance. A massive, tentacled alien approached, its limbs folding with mechanical precision, operating both as judge and enforcer. Its voice, a low-frequency hum amplified by resonating chambers, demanded, "Position the human." Markov allowed the restraints to secure her wrists and ankles. They were tight enough to convey authority, but far from restrictive. She flexed her fingers, feeling the minuscule pressure, a reminder of the alien's confidence. Her lips twitched into something faintly resembling a smile, though no one could detect it beneath the bright, pulsating lights. From the crowd, a chittering noise of derision echoed. "A fragile biped," one delegate exclaimed. "How can this species be considered a threat?" Markov's thoughts were quiet but sharp. Fragile? We'll see. Fragility, they assumed, equaled weakness. But weakness, she knew, could be weaponized when intelligence and adaptability came into play. The auctioneer, an insectoid being with translucent wings and multifaceted eyes, raised its clawed appendages. "The specimen is human. Starting bid, 100 galactic credits. Any offers?" Its voice rippled across the hall, harsh and mechanical. Murmurs spread quickly, delegates exchanging confident glances. Every one of them believed the outcome predetermined. Humans were insignificant, predictable, easy to manipulate. Their arrogance was universal, as was their ignorance. Markov's gaze swept the crowd. She noted their patterns: reliance on brute strength, overconfidence in technology, assumption that fear would dictate human behavior. Each flaw was an opportunity. Every overconfident gesture, every dismissive laugh, became a potential leverage point. The aliens failed to recognize the one trait that made humans so dangerous: the combination of ingenuity, improvisation, and unrelenting persistence. A delegate laughed, its mandibles clacking together, producing a sound that echoed like percussion through the hall. "See how it trembles. A species so fragile cannot endure our tests." Markov's breathing remained steady. There was no fear, only calculation. Humans had survived against impossible odds before. This stage, these species, were no different. Every assumed disadvantage could be turned into an advantage. She allowed herself a moment to think, to map every potential move, every reaction, every miscalculation the aliens might make. The first demonstration began with a mechanical display of alien dominance, a holographic array of weaponry, showing precise targeting, incapacitation sequences, and simulated combat scenarios. The audience leaned forward, their eyes gleaming with anticipation, expecting the human to falter. Markov studied the array, noting the reliance on predictability and rigid protocols. The aliens believed strength lay in technology and physical superiority, yet they underestimated adaptability. She could anticipate their sequences, identify gaps, and improvise in ways the aliens could not fathom. A young delegate, still visibly nervous, whispered to its companion, "Surely it cannot respond to this with anything meaningful." Markov's mind formed the answer before she spoke. Subtle, unexpected, precise. She would not react with raw strength. She would react with cunning, intellect, and creativity, the tools humans wielded best. As the holograms concluded, a pause settled over the hall. The aliens expected obedience, fear. Instead, they encountered calm, an unshakable focus, a human entirely in control of her own response. That quiet confidence, so alien in this setting, began to unsettle some delegates, though none admitted it aloud. Markov flexed her fingers inside the restraints once more. Not a threat, they were irrelevant. She had already turned the tables in her mind. The stage, the audience, the auction itself, all were variables she could manipulate. One human, underestimated, now held the potential to challenge the galaxy's most powerful species without lifting a weapon. The auctioneer's claws clicked in signal. Observe closely. Humanity will demonstrate its value. Markov inhaled slowly, letting the weight of humanity's history settle in her chest. This was not merely a demonstration of survival. It was a statement of intellect, adaptability, and moral courage. One human, underestimated, yet already rewriting the assumptions of an entire galaxy. The lights brightened, cameras focused, and the delegates leaned forward, eager to witness what they thought would be a spectacle of weakness. But what happened next would leave the hall in silence, a silence born not of boredom, but of astonishment. Because one human, underestimated and restrained, was about to prove that intelligence could outweigh brute force, that subtlety could outmaneuver raw power, and that the galaxy had yet to comprehend the full measure of humanity. The auction lights dimmed slightly, casting long shadows across the crystalline floor. Lena Markov stepped off the platform with measured precision, her posture calm, almost regal. Around her, the delegates whispered, some in disbelief, others in derision. Yet beneath the surface of the spectacle, the true stakes were far higher than the audience realized. Humanity was not a prize. It was a force that had endured impossible odds and adapted to challenges that would have crushed any other species. Tonight, that truth would quietly unfold. In the observation suite above the hall, a group of human strategists monitored the proceedings via holographic feeds. Commander Elias Varga, a veteran of interstellar reconnaissance, narrowed his eyes at the flickering displays. His jaw tightened. They are expecting intimidation. That's their first mistake. His voice carried authority, the kind earned through decades of hard choices and near-impossible missions. Next to him, Dr. Marilyn, a bioengineer with a reputation for turning theory into practical advantage, traced patterns on her tablet, highlighting the delegates' gestures, reaction times, and micro-expressions. Every movement they make tells us how predictable they think humans are, she said. It's laughable that they don't see how adaptable we can be. Back on the floor, Lena faced the Gala's first challenge. A group of delegates stepped forward, their armor glinting with energy conduits, their limbs engineered for both grace and lethal efficiency. They held devices capable of delivering incapacitating electric shocks, neural disruptors, and restraint protocols far beyond human technology. To the aliens, this demonstration was meant to break her, to prove that humans were fragile, irrelevant, and ultimately expendable. Lena moved deliberately, stepping around the projected barriers, analyzing their rhythm. Her body was unarmed, her strength insufficient to match theirs physically, yet her mind moved faster than the machinery, faster than their expectations. Every step she took exploited a tiny flaw, a misaligned actuator, a predictable timing pattern, an over-reliance on protocol. By the time the first device activated, she had already neutralized its effect with a combination of evasive maneuvers and precise redirection, turning their own tools against them without anyone noticing. The audience gasped. A few laughed nervously, thinking it a clever trick, but the veterans in the crowd paused, their compound eyes narrowing. No human should have been able to anticipate that sequence, let alone respond so fluidly. Lena's calm composure, paired with her calculated improvisation, began to sow doubt in even the most confident delegates. Meanwhile, Commander Varga leaned over the console. Notice how they are assuming direct confrontation will work. That's step one in human error theory. Predictability is the enemy's weakness. Dr. Lin's fingers danced over the holographic interface. We're observing every neural spike, every micro-expression. This is more than survival, it's data. Humanity thrives on data and improvisation. The gala escalated. A panel of alien judges introduced complex simulations, chemical hazards, environmental manipulations, and cognitive puzzles designed to test problem-solving under duress. Each challenge was intended to corner Lena, to force her into predictable human responses. Yet she moved with fluid adaptability, blending instinct with intellect. Where the aliens expected fear, they found calm. Where they expected hesitation, she struck decisively with minimal motion. In the audience, some delegates exchanged worried glances. Their assumptions, strength equals superiority, technology equals invincibility, were beginning to unravel. How is it possible? One hissed in disbelief. It should have failed. But failure was not in Lena's calculations. Every action she took was grounded in human experience, improvisation born of centuries of survival against larger predators, strategic planning honed in the most hostile environments, and a moral foundation that allowed calculated risks without hesitation. To an alien, these traits were unpredictable, chaotic even, but they were methodical, disciplined chaos, the kind that could outmaneuver raw power. At one point, a delegate attempted to isolate her within a containment field, relying on synchronized energy pulses that should have incapacitated any human. Lena anticipated the timing, leaping and rolling with precision, redirecting the field's energy toward the floor and ceiling to destabilize the platform. The audience recoiled. Several species murmured uneasily. The human was not just surviving. She was turning the challenge against them, demonstrating a mastery of spatial reasoning and improvisation that no alien could anticipate. Back in the observation suite, Dr. Lin smiled faintly. Notice their micro-adjustments? They are trying to compensate for what they can't predict. That's the point. They can't model humans accurately. Commander Varga nodded. And they won't. Not ever. That's why we survive. That's why we win. By the end of the hour, Lena stood on the platform again, unscathed, composed, and alert. The delegates, once brimming with confidence, were quiet, some shocked, some irritated, all forced to reconsider their assumptions. Humanity, in their eyes, had gone from curiosity to a genuine threat, not through brute force or advanced weapons, but through intellect, adaptability, and sheer resolve. The gala's first phase concluded, but the human demonstration had already achieved more than expected. Every alien present now questioned what they thought they knew about the species. The seeds of doubt had been planted, subtle yet undeniable. And Lena, representing a species they believed fragile, had only begun to reveal what it meant to underestimate humanity. Outside the hall, distant stars glimmered through the massive windows, silent witnesses to a spectacle far more significant than a May auction. One human, underestimated and restrained, had already begun rewriting the galaxy's assumptions. The challenges were only going to get harder, but so too would humanity's ingenuity and determination. And the aliens had no idea what was coming next. The lights in the gala hall shifted, taking on a colder, more clinical hue. Lena Markov's calm composure remained unbroken, but beneath it, her mind raced through contingencies. The aliens had learned little from the first demonstration. They still assumed humans could be contained, predicted, outmatched. That overconfidence would be their undoing. A series of mechanical gates slid open at the far end of the hall, revealing the next stage of the challenge. It was a labyrinth of shimmering energy fields, moving barriers, and platforms suspended over a pit filled with an iridescent liquid that glowed with volatile chemical energy. The delegation leaned forward, their exoskeletons clicking with anticipation. They expected failure, a moment of hesitation that would prove the human species' inferiority. Lena surveyed the environment in a single, precise sweep. Her training allowed her to analyze patterns, anticipate sequences, and calculate odds faster than any alien could react. She noted the timing of the moving platforms, the rhythm of the energy fields, and the slight delay in the automated hazard systems. Every flaw in their design became a path forward. The first step was the leap to the nearest platform. Energy fields crackled, creating invisible barriers that were lethal to missteps. Lena timed her movement perfectly, landing lightly, absorbing the shock of the barrier without faltering. A ripple of murmurs spread through the audience, but she paid them no attention. This was not about performance, it was about survival and strategy. A mechanical arm descended from above, attempting to sweep her into the pit. Lena pivoted, rolling along the edge of a platform, using its momentum to redirect the arm into a containment panel. The movement was fluid, effortless in appearance, yet precise in execution. To the aliens, it seemed impossible, unpredictable, chaotic. To Lena, it was calculation, instinct, and adaptation combined. From the observation suite, Commander Varga's voice crackled in her earpiece. Remember, they overestimate strength and underestimate improvisation. Every obstacle they throw at you is designed for fear. Use that fear against them. Dr. Mara Lin added, their energy fields have a predictable decay cycle. Exploit the timing. They won't adjust fast enough. Lena acknowledged with a subtle nod, though her focus remained on the next sequence of moving barriers. The labyrinth forced her to make split-second decisions. At one juncture, she faced a choice, a narrow path over a section of volatile liquid or a series of rotating platforms with uneven spacing. Most humans would hesitate. The aliens assumed hesitation was inevitable. Lena chose the latter, calculating trajectory, distance, and rotation speed in a fraction of a second. Her landing was precise, the mechanical click of the platform echoing through the hall. The audience reacted audibly, gasping, clattering, some voices rising in disbelief. The confidence that had dominated the early proceedings began to erode. The delegates had assumed humans would fail quickly, but here she was, defying expectations, moving with grace and intelligence rather than brute force. An alien judge attempted an intervention, activating a sudden spike of electromagnetic pulses designed to disable the human nervous system. Lena detected the shift in field strength almost immediately, countering with a subtle adjustment in her stance, redirecting the energy harmlessly into the floor. The room fell silent, the tension palpable. The aliens had no framework for this level of improvisation. Their calculations were linear, their assumptions rigid. By the halfway point, Lena had cleared the majority of the labyrinth, leaving a trail of confused and increasingly agitated delegates behind her. She paused momentarily on a high platform, scanning the hall. She noticed small patterns in their behavior, micro-gestures of doubt, shifts in stance, subtle changes in vocal pitch. The arrogance that had once blinded them was now cracking, exposing the vulnerability that only overconfidence can create. The final section of the labyrinth presented a choice designed to break morale. Two paths, one visible and clearly navigable, the other obscured by shadows and deceptive energy projections. The obvious path led directly into a trap. Lena, relying on instinct honed through years of fieldwork, chose the hidden route. She moved with deliberate precision, avoiding sensors, redirecting energy flows, and navigating unstable platforms that the aliens had assumed no human could survive. By the time she reached the end, she had not only completed the labyrinth, but demonstrated an understanding of alien strategy that few could comprehend. The crowd was quiet, some in awe, others frustrated, but all recalculating their assumptions. Humanity, they realized, was not merely surviving. It was anticipating, adapting, and countering with intelligence that no machine or weapon could match. In the observation suite, Dr. Lin allowed herself a small smile. They still don't understand why she's winning. They can't predict human ingenuity. Commander Varga's voice was firm. And they never will. That's the advantage we carry, thinking, adapting, improvising. Back on the platform, Lena Markov straightened her posture, her calm demeanor unshaken. She had faced the impossible again and emerged not only unscathed but strategically dominant. The aliens had underestimated a human once more, and it would cost them more than they realized. The true test was only just beginning, and humanity was ready. The Gala had expected a demonstration of fragility. Instead, they had witnessed cunning, intelligence, and adaptability. One human had turned a series of lethal obstacles into a display of calculated mastery, leaving the galaxy's most powerful species to confront a simple, terrifying truth. They could not predict what humans would do next. The hall had grown colder, the alien delegates shifting uneasily in their seats. Lena Markov's calm presence had become a silent provocation, and the more the audience tried to anticipate her moves, the more impossible they became to predict. The next challenge had been announced, a test not of agility or reflexes, but of strategy and intellect. The aliens, confident in their own cognitive superiority, believed humans would crumble under complex problem-solving combined with high-stakes pressure. The floor beneath Lena transformed into a holographic map of the entire Gala Hall. Projected grids displayed shifting energy fields, security drones, and patterns of movement for each alien faction. The goal was simple. In theory, navigate the map, disable a series of containment locks, and reach the command terminal at the center. Failure meant capture, humiliation, or worse, though the delegates assumed the human would fail long before reaching the end. Lena crouched, scanning the grids. Her mind moved faster than the projections could update. Every algorithm, every probable sequence of drone movement, she processed instinctively. The aliens had overlooked one critical factor. Humans did not follow predictable logic. They improvised, adapted, and used misdirection as a weapon. A series of drones descended, their sensors glowing red, ready to incapacitate. Lena moved laterally, letting the drones overshoot their program trajectories. She manipulated their own momentum against them, redirecting two into each other with a subtle push and a precise calculation of force. The audience murmured, a mixture of astonishment and disbelief echoing in clicks, hums, and vibrations. "Impressive," muttered a fallen delegate, its exoskeleton creaking. "Yet it is still just one human." From above, Commander Varga's voice came through Lena's earpiece. "Watch their assumptions. They expect fear to guide your decisions. Instead, let confidence shape your actions." Lena advanced through the holographic labyrinth, encountering a section where the floor itself would retract unpredictably. Alien designers assumed panic or hesitation would cause a human to misstep. Lena, however, calculated timing and trajectory, using momentum to glide across gaps, her movements measured and precise. Every step highlighted a subtle truth. Humans thrived where predictability failed. Suddenly, the aliens triggered a new mechanism, a field that distorted gravity in localized areas, intended to disorient and trap. Lena adapted instantly, using her body's natural balance, shifting weight and momentum to counter the distortion. To the delegates, it appeared as if she were defying the laws of physics itself. Each subtle adjustment, each improvisational decision undermined their expectations. At the halfway mark, Lena paused on a raised platform, reviewing the remaining obstacles. She noted the pattern of the containment locks. They were interconnected, a network the aliens assumed only a brute force or high-level hacking attempt could unravel. But humans did not need brute force. They could think around the problem. She began applying sequential logic, exploiting the redundancy in the system, bypassing the complex protocols with elegant efficiency. From the observation suite, Dr. Lin whispered, "Notice how they still fail to model her behavior. She's turning their own security network into a pathway. They don't even realize they are assisting her." Commander Varga leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "And that's precisely why humans survive. We use expectation against them." The final approach to the command terminal was guarded by the Gala's most elite delegates, each armed with a combination of neural disruptors and kinetic restraints. They believed overwhelming firepower would compensate for unpredictability. Lena assessed their positions, their likely responses, and the limitations of their technology. With minimal movement, she created a chain reaction. One delegate's attempt to incapacitate her triggered a sequence that caused another to collide with its companion, leaving the path clear. The audience was stunned into silence. They had never anticipated that one human could manipulate multiple threats simultaneously without direct confrontation. What had seemed like luck was actually calculation, intuition, and improvisation refined through centuries of survival in hostile environments. Lena reached the terminal. Her fingers hovered above the controls for a heartbeat, then pressed with deliberate intent. Systems across the hall responded, disabling containment protocols and signaling completion. The audience erupted, some in panic, some in awe. The arrogance that had once dominated the room had been dismantled, replaced by cautious respect and creeping fear. In the observation suite, Dr. Lin exhaled. They expected the human to fail. They can't comprehend strategy that isn't linear. Commander Varga's voice was quiet but firm. This is the apex of human ingenuity. Intelligence, adaptation, and resolve. They can't model it, and they can't counter it without underestimating us further. Back on the platform, Lena straightened, her calm presence once again unshaken. The aliens had intended to humiliate, to demonstrate human weakness. Instead, they had witnessed something entirely different: precision, intelligence, and a mastery of adaptability that challenged their core assumptions. For the first time, murmurs in the audience contained hesitation. What had been arrogance was giving way to caution. What had been expectation was now uncertainty. One human had not only survived the gauntlet but had rewritten the rules, proving that intellect and strategic thinking could outweigh brute strength and technological superiority. And as the delegates glanced at one another, their composure faltering, it became clear: the human before them was not just resilient, she was terrifying. The air in the Gala hall was thick with expectation. Lena Markov stood at the center of a new arena, a massive platform suspended above a pit of volatile, swirling energy. Around her, the alien delegates waited, their confidence radiating in waves, though subtle cracks were beginning to show. They assumed that the next challenge would finally break her, that the human would falter under pressure. They had underestimated the one quality that humans wielded better than any technology or brute force: ingenuity. The arena's mechanics shifted suddenly, a lattice of platforms moving in unpredictable sequences. Electromagnetic barriers pulsed in timed intervals, each one capable of incapacitating an unprepared human in an instant. Lena's green eyes flicked across the landscape, calculating distances, timing, and the trajectory of moving hazards. She could feel the rhythm of the arena almost instinctively, each pulse a cue for her next movement. A trio of elite alien operatives approached, their limbs armored, their weapons humming with lethal intent. They expected intimidation to work, expecting fear to dictate her decisions. Lena, however, did not hesitate. Instead, she used their own confidence against them, predicting their movements and exploiting the over-reliance on protocol. With subtle shifts of weight and carefully timed pivots, she redirected the first operative's attack, sending it staggering into a containment pillar. The second attempted to intercept, only to collide with its companion as she moved through the lattice with uncanny precision. From the observation suite, Commander Elias Varga's voice came through her earpiece. "They think you'll respond predictably. You won't. Let them underestimate what humans can do." Dr. Mara Lin added, "Focus on adaptability. Their technology is precise, but linear. Human improvisation will outpace it." Lena absorbed the instructions, translating them instantly into action. The arena introduced a sudden complication: localized gravity fields that shifted without warning, forcing her to adjust balance and momentum in ways the aliens could not anticipate. Each alteration was meant to disorient, but Lena moved with controlled fluidity, her body instinctively compensating for each shift. The audience gasped at her apparent defiance of physics, failing to comprehend that it was not luck, but calculation, adaptation, and reflex honed through experience. Above her, drones deployed in synchronized sweeps, designed to trap her in a corridor of lethal pulses. Lena analyzed their pattern in milliseconds, identifying gaps in timing. With a calculated jump and roll, she redirected the drone's energy back into the arena floor, destabilizing part of the lattice and creating a temporary barrier against the remaining adversaries. The audience grew tense, murmurs spreading across the room, some in disbelief, others in grudging admiration. Then came the moral test. The final gate required her to choose between activating a sequence that would save herself but endanger another human delegate in a simulated capture scenario, or delaying to ensure both could survive. Alien architects assumed humans would act selfishly under duress. Lena hesitated only briefly, calculating risk and reward. She chose the path that minimized harm, using clever rerouting of energy channels and platform sequences to protect both herself and the other human. Her choice rippled through the arena, triggering a cascade of reactions. Containment locks disengaged, barriers collapsed safely, and the remaining alien operatives were forced to recalibrate. Their systems, designed for dominance and linear responses, could not process her adaptive strategy in real time. Confusion spread across the hall. Their meticulous plans unraveled in the face of a human mind capable of improvisation and ethical calculation simultaneously. Lena's final approach to the central terminal was met with a coordinated assault by the Gala's most elite delegates. They unleashed a combination of kinetic restraints and neural disruptors, expecting to incapacitate her instantly. But Lena had anticipated this. With minimal motion, she created a chain reaction, using the environment and the operatives' momentum against them. One struck another, one fell into a temporary energy trap of its own making, and the path to the terminal cleared. When her fingers pressed the controls, the arena's systems responded, releasing containment sequences, shutting down lethal fields, and signaling the completion of the final challenge. The alien audience erupted into a mixture of astonishment, panic, and awe. The arrogance that had dominated the Gala for hours had collapsed under the weight of human intellect and adaptability. In the observation suite, Dr. Lin exhaled, smiling faintly. They didn't see it coming. They never do. Commander Varga's voice was quiet but resolute. This is why humans survive. Calculation, adaptability, and moral courage. They cannot model it, and they cannot counter it without underestimating us further. Back on the arena, Lena straightened her posture. She had faced the impossible again and emerged not only unscathed but victorious. The delegates had intended to humiliate, to prove human inferiority, but instead they had witnessed a display of strategy, ingenuity, and ethical decision-making that challenged everything they thought they knew. For the first time, the delegates' whispers were tinged with faith. Humanity, they realized, was not only resilient but terrifyingly capable. One human had rewritten the rules, exposing arrogance as a vulnerability, and demonstrating that intelligence, improvisation, and moral resolve could outmatch technology, numbers, and assumed superiority. And as the lights of the arena dimmed slightly, signaling the end of the final trial, Lena knew the galaxy would never underestimate her species again.